Alright guys, we just rounded that corner, came down here. We got a culvert. It's coming from this nice timber, cutting across the corn, standing corn. And this trail is a pretty good one. I mean, I think a lot of people see these trails, and you should. They're great trails. You know, I'll catch several coon here. And it's mostly the little subtle ones that I'm trying to help people pick up on, but yeah, these ones, definitely focus on these ones too. They're really good. You know, we're gonna go up here around the corner a little ways, but you can't beat these unless, like I said earlier, you get some timber to timber trails. Those tend to outproduce as far as consistency. I feel like these go into corn. In about 3 days, I've got just about everything that's using it regularly, I should say. I know people that will leave their traps season long on spots like this, and after about, you know, I would guess 3 or 4 days, he'd probably be down to picking up a raccoon maybe once every 6 or 7 days. And I want to move on to better ground at that point. So like I said, my first line, I'll have them out 4, 5, maybe 6 days if it keeps producing. One thing I've noticed with my road line, it seems like whatever you catch one day, the next day you can expect about half of that. And the next day about half of that. It just dies out that quick on a lot of locations. And overall, since my line is going to cornfields, I feel that's the case. If I focus more on strictly timber to timber locations, I think I would be able to stay there longer and consistently over a time period catch more raccoons. But I don't have that many of them, of the timber to timber locations. So I'm going to set every one of these as well as the timber locations, and then pull everything and move to a new line. Hopefully, especially this year, I've got enough traps out. That second line's already going to be pre-staked. So hopefully I can pull everything in one day on my line, my first one, and either the same day or the following day, because I might need a break, go out and set everything. So anywho, this is another great location. Sorry to get sidetracked, but you know, we didn't move far. I mean, you know, we're 150 yards from that corner probably. Just a nice big mature timber on the other side. So we're gonna go on down around this corner and show you what's going on down there. Alright guys, here we got this nice fence line that runs down a ways. And it goes down, it's right on the edge of a field. It's hard to tell, but you got beans on both sides, but it's two different farmers. There used to be a little draw here, and when that was corn last year, coming off of this fence line was really good for coon. I picked up probably 6 or 7 coon here. I'd have to go back to my notes and look, but and I did it right off the road. You can see where that game trail kind of comes across now, which I think is mostly deer. But they come across, and my traps are right there. Here's the road. That's where I had my traps. I don't worry about theft all too much. Yes, it happens, but I've learned to just factor it into everything. You know, this year it's not really that great. There's a game trail here, and on the other side, you know, the raccoons will run it, and I might throw a dog proof out here, but it's not very optimistic. I know a lot of people that would put snares in that trail. In my belief, that's primarily a deer trail, just by where it's coming from. Not saying coyotes won't use it, and not saying you couldn't catch one here. But with my snares, I prefer to drive by and look. And if it's nothing's in it, then hopefully it's still standing. That, if you set a snare right here, I believe that you're going to be resetting that almost every day because deer will knock it down. You might get lucky in a couple weeks and pick up a coyote, or you could get on day one, I don't know. But I don't set that because I really don't have the time or energy to be resetting every snare every day. I'll focus on stuff that I believe are strictly coyote trails, which I am not a coyote trapper, so I'm not very good at that. But I do tend to pick up 5 to 10 on my road line every year. Nothing crazy, you know, I'm a coon trapper, but I'm also an opportunity trapper. I'm gonna catch whatever's there, or at least attempt to. So, anywho, there's this. I do want to show you, we got a couple nice low spots coming up here. This first one is about 40 yards from their driveway. Up there's a house. And when that goes to corn, it's actually a really good trail. I don't set that one. Legally, I can here in Iowa. With dog-proof traps, you could set in the front yard of somebody's house, which in my opinion is not ethical, I guess. You know, I tend to try to avoid being within sight of houses. There's another spot over there on the far side. There's a low spot right before that intersection. I always set that one because you got a group of trees that tends to block me from their view. It's not that I'm doing anything illegal, but I just don't have the time to sit there and get chewed out by a landowner. You know, and you can't blame them. You know, a lot of guys kind of get pissy with them, but you got to put it in their perspective. If they know nothing about trapping, and all of a sudden there's this guy 20 yards from their house in a ditch fooling around, it's going to look suspicious. And especially if they're really uneducated about trapping, you know, they think, oh, it's got a trap, it's going to kill my dog. No, I use dog proofs for anything within 200 yards of houses. Matter of fact, if I'm close to a house where I know they have any type of cats, I switch up my bait. Normally I use cat food for everything in my dog proofs. I'll switch it up to a sweet-based bait just to make sure that I don't have that opportunity to catch their cats. You know, dog proofs are very friendly traps. You can release them pretty easily, so it's not that big of a deal, but I just want to avoid the situation altogether. Like I said, you can't be upset with them. It seems like every time someone pulls over next to me on the side of the road, it's one of two things. One, if you're trapping, this is my property, and kind of get my ass chewed, and then explain to them that I'm in the right of way. Then they call, you know, the game warden. It's just because they're uneducated. They don't know you can trap the road ditches legally. Or the other thing is someone pulls up, asks what I'm doing, I tell them trapping. Then they say, hey, over yonder I got this pond full of muskrats and this creek full of beaver. I need you to come get them for me. Awesome, I'd be happy to. So, you know, it's just, you pick your battles. Yes, I could trap this, and when that's corn, there's a heck of a good trail there. But for me, it's not worth it. I'll go to the far one, and I'll catch 3 or 4 coon off that one, and move on. You know, you kind of use your own head about it. So just because something is legal to do doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Just remember that, guys. We're gonna go up there to that next point, and I'm gonna show you what we got. Hey guys, you got a pretty decent trail here coming off this fence line. It's beans on one side and just kind of CRP on the other. Not the greatest of trails, but it's something you can pick up. You know, it's coming off a fence line, going over here to a larger timber. Haven't looked over here yet, but I'm sure the trail is coming across somewhere. Yeah, it's right here. It's kind of hard to make out, but it comes right up and through and goes on up. Again, not a great spot, but a spot I can pick up a coon or two. So we're gonna crest this hill right here. I believe there's a nice timber to timber location. That's what we're headed to. There's a lot of beans in this particular part of my route, and instead of abandoning it altogether, I got enough timber to timber locations to keep it worth it. So we're gonna head up here and check it out. Man, we're dry here in southern Iowa. Normally there's about a foot or so of water in this. It's hard to tell. It's all just dried up rocks now. But this is a really, really good location. Normally another one of my 6 to 8 probably. And mostly because it's timber, cutting across to timber. You know, it's just one of those locations that's going to keep producing for me. You know, it comes to a dead end here. I actually turn around up here at the next farm entrance, and it's what I call a deadhead. About a half a mile. But there's two locations on this there, timber to timber, that are worth me picking up on. You know, there's a lot of beans in between, but next year when that's corn, it's even better. But I try not to deadhead too much. It seems like the farther you go, the more of a backtrack you have to go. I've caught myself before, like, going down a new road, like, oh, that looks good, or that looks good. Next thing you know, you're 3-4 miles down the road, and then all of a sudden, everything stops. You know, or maybe it kind of petered out along the way of, you started off really good locations, then next thing you know you're half mile apart and then a mile apart. Well, when do you stop? When do you stop and turn around? You know, and that everyone's different, but I can't get too far out of my standard route of, I can't have too many deadheads that kill too much time turning around. I try to make everything one smooth motion, if you will. So anyway, we're gonna get turned around here, and there's a couple things I gotta show you yet. So stick around. Alright guys, I won't be setting this spot this year just because of the beans. Some spots have trails going to beans, other spots don't. But I just want to show you, last year when everything on the left side here was all corn, so now they've got all the beans out, there was trails galore through here. There was one right here by this little power meter. There was one right there by that telephone pole. There's one by that big tall tree there. And there's one in that low point. And I'll check that low point, because if there is going to be a trail going to the beans, or what's left of them, it would probably be in that low point. So I'm not setting this here, but I'm just letting you know what to look for. You got a nice tree line here. And if this is corn on the other side, boy, it's a perfect setup. You know, I think they go to this power pole because it was right on a field edge. You know, and those are good locations too, especially for your coyotes and predators. So I just want to point this out to you of what this potential has for next year. But we're gonna get up here. There's a tree line up here a ways that goes to a fence line. So we'll check that out and see what's up there. Here we are at that low spot that I was telling you about. There actually is a trail going through this tube, if you can pick up on it. And it goes right up to where the beans were. Something else I want to mention, whatever they do to crop fields takes away the appeal. If I had to rank them, I would say standing corn is your best spot. Then a cut cornfield is still pretty good. Then I would probably go to standing beans as your next one. And then probably cut beans, which I very rarely will set on. And then a disc cornfield. Once they disc that cornfield up, it almost has no appeal anymore. And you know, if they tear up a bean field, to me it's not worth stopping to. Some people do, but standing beans is about the only thing I'll set on most of the time in a bean field. If it's cut, generally I'll go past it. Sometimes even when they're standing, I'll go past it because the trails won't be there. This particular trail, it looks pretty good for going to beans. I'm actually pretty impressed by it. The only problem was they just took these beans out a couple days ago. So within a couple days, those animals are going to realize that nothing's there anymore, or very little, so they'll look somewhere else. I'll probably go ahead and just throw 220 in down here in the mouth. It's actually really tight quarters right here. It'd be perfect for a 220. So, but other than that, you know, it's hard to say. Use your own judgment. You'll start figuring out a pattern and a rhythm of what works for you. Just because I'm saying what works for me doesn't mean it'll work for you. Experiment, figure things out. You know, and there's spots like this where the trail looks like that, where it's like, oh, I might catch 1 or 2, and I could catch 6 here. I don't know. But just going by my past experience with stuff like this, going to a cut bean field, it's not going to be very promising. I would not go out of my way to set this, but I go right past it. It's literally about a foot down, and even I can make that jump. So, but yeah, we'll go ahead and set this. What I'm mostly intrigued about was getting up here to this fence line. Generally there's something pretty decent up there, so we'll get up there and take a look.